You can smell Silverview Park before you see it, like someone Febreezed the entire zip code. Seriously. As we drove in with the windows down, I caught this unnatural blend of cut grass, chlorine, and something that might have been lavender but also might have been synthetic conformity. Liv cracked a joke about it smelling too clean, but Ava was too busy gawking at the playgrounds and identical mailboxes to notice. We had just pulled off the interstate 3 hours outside the city, leaving behind the cramped apartment we'd outgrown and the noise I used to call background music. This was supposed to be our reset button. Quiet, safe, predictable. Liv needed peace. Ava needed a yard. And me? I needed to not be the guy who still chased stories that could get him killed. So yeah, I was trying to be optimistic. The Welcome to Silverview Park sign greeted us in elegant serif font. Beneath it, a smaller plaque. An HOA-Governed community, order is our peace. I should have turned the car around. We rolled past rows of pastel-hued houses, everyone with identical white fencing, manicured lawns, and porches that looked like they were staged for a Better Homes and Gardens shoot. I saw not one curtain out of place, not one trash bin left out, and definitely not one non-compliant vehicle. No rust, no bumper stickers, no soul. I nudged Liv. You think they issue Stepford starter kits at the gate? She smirked, but only half joking. Just keep your sarcasm under the speed limit. Our real estate agent, a grinning woman named Candace who said compliance more than she said kitchen, was waiting on the porch of our new home, house number 27. Welcome, welcome. Isn't it just darling? She sang, gesturing like a game show model toward a 2-story colonial with approved earth-tone shutters and a regulation front door wreath. I had to admit, it looked perfect, just not real. Inside, the place was spotless, staged within an inch of its life, but clean. The kind of clean that made you want to apologize for breathing. While Candace walked Liv through the smart thermostat and the HOA's official mobile app, yes, really, I poked around the living room and caught a glimpse of old man Hank. He was across the street, standing in his driveway like a statue, holding a garden hose that wasn't spraying, just staring, not at me, through me. And when I raised a polite wave, he didn't move, just blinked. We moved in on a Thursday. The moving truck had barely finished unloading when a cheerful man in khakis and a Silverview Park polo shirt rang our doorbell, holding a clipboard and a laminated packet. HOA welcome kit, he chirped, handing it over like he was delivering a baby. I'm Brett, Assistant Compliance Coordinator. Thought I'd go ahead and introduce myself before your first weekly walkthrough. Weekly? What now? I opened the packet. Inside were a 46-page Community Covenant Handbook, a 3-color chart for acceptable front door hues. Spoiler, all variants of beige. A printed welcome letter with our assigned property behavioral score. Yes, that's a thing. Apparently, Silverview tracks your compliance rating based on rule adherence. We started at a 92. Very good, Brett said, like we were golden retrievers. Keep it above 90 and you'll love it here. I was about to ask what happened if it dropped below 90, but Ava ran in with grass stains on her knees, and Brett's eye twitched like she'd tracked blood across his prayer rug. Just a heads up, he said, voice tighter now. Play is encouraged, but grass damage can lead to citations. Citations. For grass. That night, Liv and I sat on the back deck after Ava went to bed. A faint speaker somewhere down the street played ambient flute music. HOA-approved mood settings. Apparently, she leaned on my shoulder. It's nice. A little weird, but nice. I nodded, not trusting myself to say more. The quiet was too curated. Every sound felt staged, Even the crickets chirped in sync. I pulled out my phone and opened the HOA app out of morbid curiosity. There was a section labeled Behavioral Reports with a list of violations submitted by other residents. Anonymous, of course. Someone got dinged for unapproved LED lighting hue. Someone else was warned for prolonged curtain sway. I laughed. But Liv didn't. She was staring at a note taped inside the welcome handbook. Handwritten, not typed. It said, "They watch the windows after dark. Keep your shadows calm." No signature. No explanation. She glanced at me. "Did you write this?" "No," I said. "Did you?" We both looked up at the living room window, and for a moment I could have sworn I saw a red dot blink from across the street. Just once. Then nothing. It started with the mailbox. I know. Not exactly the plot twist of the century. But in Silverview Park, a new mailbox is like a severed horse head in the bed. A message. It was the third morning after we moved in. I stepped outside with my coffee, still in pajama pants, and froze. Our old black, slightly dented but fully functional mailbox had been replaced by a shiny new one. Sleek, stainless steel. No flag, no handle. Just a slot, and engraved on the front in tiny, neat font, 27 in alignment. I walked back inside, holding the coffee like it was a grenade. "Hey, Liv," I called. "Did you order a new mailbox?" She came down barefoot, squinting. "What?" "Mailbox. It's gone. Replaced." "Replaced with what?" I pointed out the front window. Her face went still. "I didn't authorize that," she said low. "We checked the HOA app. Nothing. No notification. No request. No service order. But under our property listing, a new note had appeared. Green circle, exterior compliance update. Mail structure now in alignment with HOA visual cohesion standards. No further action required." "Cohesion standards?" Liv said. "It was black, not neon. It matched." I took a breath. Let's call it a housewarming present from Big Beige. She didn't laugh. Later that day, we got our first real violation. A formal notice was posted to our front door, laminated, naturally, citing us for decorative density infraction. The offense? Too many lawn items. We had 5. A ceramic turtle Ava picked out, a garden gnome from Liv's sister, 2 small solar lights, and a wind spinner shaped like a sunflower. We were allowed 4. The citation was printed in an unsettling font, somewhere between wedding invitation and threatening summons. It came with a photo of our yard taken from the street. Time-stamped, angled like a security cam. Ava's turtle had a red circle around it. Liv's hands shook as she peeled it off the door. "I hate this," she muttered. I tried to calm her. "It's fine. We'll move the turtle to the backyard and—" "No, Sam, that's not the point. They're watching us." And sure enough, when I looked back toward the street, I saw a silver SUV idling at the corner. It pulled away the moment I made eye contact. That weekend, Ava cried for 2 hours, not because of the turtle, because Lady, the golden retriever who lived 2 doors down, disappeared. Ava had made fast friends with Lady during our walks. She even made up stories about her Queen Lady of Yardia, guardian of the squirrels. But on Saturday morning, the fence gate was open, the yard was empty, and Lady's bed was gone. No posters went up, no social media posts. No one mentioned her again. When Ava asked the owners, the Leclercs, if Lady ran away, Mr. Leclerc gave her this weird, stiff smile and said, "She's in a better place now." Liv lost it when we got home. "A better place? Who says that about a lost dog?" He sounded like he'd rehearsed it. I didn't disagree. But I also couldn't explain what I saw later that night, when I caught Mr. Leclerc in his driveway, standing completely still at 2:17 a.m., staring at the front of his house like he'd forgotten where he lived. Then the letters started. They weren't mailed. They just showed up. Folded once, tucked inside our newspaper, left on the porch. One slid under our windshield wiper at the grocery store. The handwriting was neat, script, deliberate. And every note was addressed to Liv. Only Liv. The first one said, "You made the right choice, Liv, but you know how they handle mistakes." The second, "New name, new street, same eyes watching." She hid the first few from me until I found one in the trash, buried under a used paper towel. When I confronted her, she was pale and tight-lipped. "I think someone knows about before," she whispered. Her before was something we didn't talk about. Not since she left the nonprofit in Chicago. Not since the protest got out of hand and someone, not her, lit the match. Her record was clean. She was never charged. But her name had trended for the wrong reasons. I used a new last name. We both did. We scrubbed everything, she said, trembling. How would they know? That night, I started going through the HOA documents in detail. I found something buried in the Community Integration Guidelines. All residents are required to submit background checks, employment records, and digital screening profiles to ensure harmony of community values. We'd submitted those during escrow, didn't think twice, but then I realized they never specified what they did with them. Then came the curtain warning. We received it by push notification through the HOA app. Red exclamation mark, violation notice, window transparency concern. During evening hours, excessive emotional energy was observed through your living room windows. Please adjust lighting and/or conduct to preserve neighborhood emotional tone. I stared at it for 10 full seconds before reading it aloud. Liv didn't say anything, just walked into the living room, sat down, and pulled the curtain shut. Not long after, our property behavioral score dropped from 92 to 87. Brett, Mr. Cactus and Clipboard, showed up the next day for our weekly walkthrough. This time he brought someone new, Violet Green. She was maybe mid-50s, sleek gray bob, nails like little talons painted HOA regulation neutral. She wore pearls, a linen blouse, and a smile that could melt steel, or stab you, depending on the angle. She didn't shake our hands. "Mr. and Mrs. Keller," she said, eyes flicking over our posture like she was scanning for sins. "We just wanted to ensure everything is calibrated. Emotional integration can be a challenge in the early weeks." Liv said nothing. I tried to play dumb. "Is this about the decorative turtle?" Violet's smile didn't move. "No, Mr. Keller. This is about presents." She let that hang in the air. Then she and Brett walked away, not toward their car, but toward Old Man Hank's house. They stood on his lawn and just waited. Eventually, he opened the door and stepped out with the slow, begrudging shuffle of a man who'd learned resistance was futile. He looked at us once, then back at them, then lowered his eyes. That night, I stood in the dark hallway and stared out our window. I let my shadow be seen. And across the street, in Hank's window, I saw a note pressed to the glass in trembling block letters. "You're not paranoid. You're next." I used to chase cartel money trails across South America. I once spent 6 weeks in a Moldovan internet cafe tracking a human trafficking ring. But nothing, and I mean nothing, prepared me for the digital fortress that was the Silverview Park Homeowners Association member portal. The site was beautifully designed. Clean. Minimal. The kind of website that makes you feel safe, reassured, controlled. That was the point. After Violet's little presence talk, I started poking around the portal late at night, careful not to trigger anything that would send our behavioral score into a death spiral. Liv was rattled. Ava was quiet. Too quiet. Like she could feel the static tension under the walls. First, I downloaded every public document in the HOA archives. Newsletters, board minutes, budget reports. Harmless on the surface. But that's the thing about public records. It's not what they say. It's what they leave out. I made a spreadsheet. Because of course I did. Starting in 2013, I noticed a pattern. Each year, one or two houses quietly changed owners under ambiguous circumstances. Not sold, not foreclosed, no listings on Zillow, no moving vans, no estate sales, just different names on the portal, no welcome messages, no open house announcements, and no one in the community saying a word. I brought it up with Liv while she was making dinner. You're telling me people just vanish? Or they're made to, I said. Look, house number 14 changed names in 2017, 2019, and 2022. Same house, 3 families, no paper trail. She set the spoon down. And nobody's noticed. They're not supposed to. It's the perfect gaslight. Replace a family with one that looks the same, enough to blend in, then act like it's always been that way. She leaned against the counter, arms crossed. And why would anyone go along with that? Because Violet's not just enforcing rules, she's curating reality. Liv wasn't convinced. Not yet. Until the app glitched. She was checking the neighborhood message board one afternoon when the HOA app suddenly blinked like a frame skip. For a second, the screen showed a folder tree, raw backend files, and one of them was labeled Compliance Files, Confidential, Archive. By the time she tapped it, it was gone, but I saw the look on her face. That night, we both started digging. I cracked the app open on my laptop and routed it through a few tools I hadn't used in years. Turns out the Silverview app wasn't just a portal. It was a surveillance interface. Buried in the code were connections to a private server labeled SVP_integrity, and inside that, cameras. Hundreds of feeds, labeled by house number. Most of them interior angles, like from smart fridges, Ring doorbells, baby monitors, digital assistants. Liv's voice went cold. That's our kitchen. We watched ourselves from the night before. Liv pouring wine, me massaging her shoulders, Ava dancing in her pajamas. It was silent footage, time-stamped, cataloged, and then tagged behavioral monitoring, low risk, moderate emotional variance. I wanted to throw the laptop through the wall. Instead, I downloaded everything I could. Then I found the folders. Each one was named after a house number. Some had just a few files, others had dozens. Photos, PDFs, transcripts. One was labeled number 27 _ live _ history _ draft. I clicked. Inside was a photo from Chicago. Liv during a protest, wearing a hoodie and a face mask, standing near a burning barricade. The photo had been enhanced, her face isolated, compared against her Silverview driver's license. Notes at the bottom. Identity rebrand detected. High-risk background. Prior political involvement. Flagged for elevation. Liv stared at it for a full minute, then walked away without a word. The next HOA walkthrough was different. Violet didn't come inside this time. She stood at the edge of our lawn like she was measuring something invisible. Hands clasped, pearls gleaming like warning lights. You know, she said, when I came out to meet her. It's so inspiring to see a family adapting so well to community life. Adapting's a two-way street, I said, smiling like I wasn't considering felony wiretapping. She stepped a little closer, voice dropping to silk. I know your background, Mr. Keller. Investigative, persistent, the kind of man who pokes at systems. I do hope you've put that behind you. I smiled wider. Of course, just here to grill steaks and grow grass. Her smile never cracked, but her eyes did. That night, I visited Hank. I hadn't spoken to him since the note in the window. He opened the door without a word and let me in. The house smelled like dust and resignation. I used to be a contractor, he said, settling into a worn recliner. Built half the developments in this county. Moved in here in '02, back when the HOA was just volunteers and potlucks. What changed? He took a long drag off a mug that might have been whiskey. They started bringing in outsiders. Consultants. Quiet ones. People with government backgrounds. Privacy tech resumes. Suddenly the bylaws got tighter, the fences got taller, and the houses? He looked up. They stopped being homes. They became cells. I told him what I'd found, the surveillance, the compliance files. He nodded slowly. They've got something on everybody. Affairs, debt, old mistakes. And if they don't, they make it. Or fake it. Whatever it takes to shut you up. Why doesn't anyone speak out? He gave me a tired, broken smile. Because no one believes you. And the moment you push too far. He trailed off. You end up like house number 9. What happened to house number 9? He stood up, walked to the hallway, pulled back a loose panel in the wall. Inside was a dusty shoebox. He opened it and handed me a photograph. It was a family. Smiling. Mom, Dad, 2 kids. Barbecue in the background. Balloons. Streamers. Birthday party, I said. He nodded. Their last one. No records of them anywhere now. No forwarding address. Just gone. Like they never existed. And the house? New owners moved in 3 days later. Looked similar. Talked different. Never aged. I stared at the photo. At the little girl in the princess dress. At the man flipping burgers. At the mother with Liv's eyes. Violet replaced them? He shook his head. She replaced the idea of them like a file overwritten. And if you're not careful, he pointed at the photo, you'll be next. When I got home, Liv was waiting on the porch. She didn't speak. Just handed me a plain manila envelope. Inside was a copy of her high school yearbook photo, circled in red, and 1 line of typed text. You can't outrun a community that owns you. I've had adrenaline in my veins before. Under fire in Venezuela, chased out of a warlord's villa in Kabul. But nothing matched the feeling of standing in front of the Silverview Park HOA clubhouse at midnight with bolt cutters in my hand and my wife acting as lookout. Liv gripped her phone like it was a weapon. You're sure the server's in the basement? Public meeting minutes, I said, panting. They approved the infrastructure upgrade last May. Voted 5-0. Called it climate control installation. HVAC my ass. Snap went the lock. The door creaked open. Inside. Total darkness, scented faintly of lemon wipes and upper-class suppression. We slipped in, closed the door, and killed our flashlights. If the rumors were true, if what Hank had said was even half real, we weren't just trespassing. We were infiltrating a machine. The upper floor looked like what you'd expect. Brochures, copies of the Silverview Park Covenant Code, a wall of smiling neighborhood portraits all shot with unsettling symmetry. But down the narrow stairs behind a locked utility closet, that's where the air changed. I've been in secure server rooms before. This wasn't military grade, but it wasn't some HOA hobbyist rig either. Climate controlled. Shielded walls. 2 surveillance towers, and, absurdly, a Keurig in the corner like someone took coffee breaks in the middle of mass surveillance. And in the center of the room, a screensaver blinking softly. We powered the console. It came to life without a password. Just one folder on the desktop. Silverview_Park_operational_list. We opened it, and inside was the list. House numbers, names, notes. A massive Excel file, color-coded like a hit chart. Yellow for monitor, orange for flagged, red for scheduled. We scroll down. Number 27, Keller S&L. Status, flagged. Notes, psychological resistance, noted. Prior political involvement confirmed. Observed emotional deviation patterns. See footage, March 27, 23. Scheduled for review, Q3. Our names were there. Our fate in progress. And we weren't alone. House number 9 was marked as archived. House number 14. Reintegration successful. And 1 row up from us? Number 26. Hank H. Status, red notes. Prior noncompliance history. Subversive material discovery. Garage, February 14, 24. Final phase pending. I almost vomited. But then we saw it. A subfolder labeled Intel/Methods/Evidence. We opened it, and everything made horrifying sense. There were audio files, video transcripts, PDFs titled things like Behavioral Compliance Incident Reports and Emotional Leakage Analysis. Dozens of surveillance entries, time-stamped with algorithmic evaluations of tone, expression, mood. Liv Keller expressed prolonged melancholy at 7:32 p.m. while staring out kitchen window. No immediate community threat detected. Flag maintained. I clicked a file marked Compilation Blackmail Use Cases. Liv clutched my arm. Inside were documents used to encourage compliance, tax records, photos, recordings, AI-enhanced fake messages, even deepfakes. One entry detailed how Violet restructured House No. 22's family dynamic by leaking falsified adultery footage to their HOA app account, which their child then discovered. The next day, house for sale. Gone in a week. The HOA didn't enforce rules, they curated fear. I pulled a USB from my pocket, plugged it in, started copying. Liv whispered, "We need to leave, now." But I wasn't done yet. I opened a live feed tab, one with a camera angle I recognized, our living room. Ava was asleep on the couch. A red box traced her form like a predator tracking prey. Text flashed under the feed. Behavioral stability. Passive. Schedule remains unchanged. I yanked the USB and whispered, "Let's go." But just as we reached the stairs, we heard the front door click. Footsteps above. A voice. "Oh, Sam," came Violet's voice, buttery and cruel. "Did you really think a man like you wouldn't get curious?" Liv grabbed my hand. We darted into the shadows, crouched beneath a stairwell panel as her heels clacked above. We watched her descend through the crack in the wood, perfectly composed, reading something off a tablet. "I had such high hopes for you two," she said softly, as if to the air. "A clean slate, a family in need of order, but here you are, investigating." She sighed. "Just like the reporter you were." She looked around, eyes sharp, cold, then paused, turned toward our hiding spot. We held our breath, and then a voice buzzed in her earpiece. "Unit 14 needs assistance with a door jam," said someone. "Level 1 urgency." She hesitated. then turned, climbed the stairs, and left. As soon as the door shut, we ran. We didn't talk until we got home. Ava was still asleep, blissfully unaware of the truth we were now married to. I handed Liv the USB. She stared at it like it was glowing. "So what now?" she asked. "We go public," I said. "Who'll believe us?" I smiled grimly. "They don't have to believe us. They just have to see it." I stayed up all night editing the footage, layering documents, circling every disgusting red flag and annotation. At 6 a.m., I uploaded it all. To Reddit, to YouTube, to journalists I knew would still take my calls. And in one final touch of petty vengeance, I sent an anonymous Dropbox folder titled Silverview Surveillance Files HOA Exposed directly to the HOA member mailing list. By 7:30 a.m., our behavioral score dropped to 71. At 7:42, our app account was locked. By 8:05, I saw Violet standing at the end of our street, hands clasped behind her back like a queen inspecting a battlefield. But her smile was gone. The Kellers weren't afraid anymore, because the list wasn't a secret now. It was a weapon. By 9 a.m., my phone had exploded. Literally, fried. The screen glitched into digital confetti, then blacked out with a pathetic buzz. Liv's did the same 5 minutes later. Ava's tablet? Bricked before breakfast. The HOA wasn't subtle anymore. They'd seen the files, and they were coming. But here's the thing about the internet. Once something's out, it's out. You can't unring a bell. You can't shove a grenade back into the pin. And thanks to about 14 backup uploads, 2 burner Reddit accounts, and a few old reporter buddies who owed me favors, that grenade had gone off in the middle of 1,000 group chats by sunrise. The first email came at 9:12, from a reporter I hadn't spoken to since I left the job. Subject: Holy SH*T. Body: Is this real? Calling you now. Then another, from a verified news outlet. We're verifying documents. Can we go public? By 10 o'clock, #Silverview surveillance was trending on Twitter. Reddit had already labeled Violet the HOA dictator, and someone had made a meme of her face photoshopped onto Big Brother's body. The subreddit r/HOA nightmares blew up overnight. Thousands of upvotes, screenshots, fury. It was going viral, but the HOA wasn't going quietly. At 10:32, the first retraction attempt hit. A mass email from the Silverview Park HOA was blasted out to every resident. Asterisk: Dear neighbors, it has come to our attention that a series of fabricated materials have been circulated online in an attempt to undermine the peaceful order of our community. We urge residents to refrain from engaging with or sharing unverified content. Misinformation is a threat to cohesion. Remember, only official HOA communications are sanctioned. Silverview Park Homeowners Association. Asterisk. It was desperate and absolutely useless. Because 5 minutes later, a local news crew showed up at the gate. By noon, 2 more. And by 2 p.m., a damn helicopter circled overhead, trailing a news banner. Inside the cult of compliance, suburban surveillance exposed. Violet Green held her press conference at 3:17 p.m. sharp. Of course she did. Always punctual. Always composed. She stood behind a lectern on the community clubhouse lawn, pearls gleaming, HOA logo pin perfectly centered on her jacket. We take these allegations very seriously, she began, smile tight and artificial. However, I must reiterate, what you've seen is not representative of our values. We pride ourselves on safety, cohesion, and proactive stewardship of our beloved neighborhood. A reporter shouted, "What about the surveillance?" Violet didn't blink. Fabricated. Blackmail files? Emotional monitoring? AI-generated forgeries. And then, as if it would help her case, she added, "Silverview Park is a model community. We have nothing to hide." I almost laughed, because even as she spoke, the files were still being mirrored, copied, reposted, spread across servers, TikToks, Discords, next door. Some digital Robin Hood even created an entire website, HOA-Exposed.net, with a dedicated Silverview page titled Suburbia's Surveillance State. Liv and I watched it all from our living room, blinds drawn, laptops hot from constant uploads. Ava sat curled on the couch beside us, headphones in, unaware that her home was now ground zero in a war for the soul of suburbia. And then the HOA struck back. At 5:04 p.m., the entire neighborhood's Wi-Fi went down. Phones, routers, smart devices, all dead. A PA system, one we didn't even know existed, crackled to life with a tone that could have come from a Cold War fallout drill. "Residents of Silverview Park," came Violet's voice, now without her press-ready veneer. "Effective immediately. Digital restrictions are in place for the security of our community. Remain indoors. Trust the process. Trust the process." They actually said it out loud. Liv stared at the speaker embedded in our ceiling. Did she just initiate a lockdown? I didn't answer. I was already pulling the battery out of our backup hotspot. Then the lights flickered. Then came the knock. Not the doorbell. Not a polite HOA buzz. A knock. Slow, deliberate, and heavy enough to rattle the glass. I opened the peephole. It was Brett, Mr. Khakis in compliance, looking pale and sweaty, clipboard nowhere in sight. "Sam," he said, not smiling. "I need to speak with you, please. This is bigger than Violet." I cracked the door. He didn't try to step in. "She's gone too far. We were just supposed to keep things organized, man. But this is some Orwell-level shit." Liv joined me. "Then help us stop it." He looked over his shoulder, lowered his voice. "There's a kill switch, a central override. It controls every device connected to the HOA system. Cameras, accounts, even the damn sprinklers." "Where is it?" He hesitated, then whispered. "Server hub. Basement. Clubhouse. Violet's private access key." My stomach dropped. "We were just there. You didn't see the real room," he said. By 6:30 p.m., we were back in the clubhouse. Only this time, we weren't alone, because the neighborhood had finally woken up. We passed 4 residents on the way in, all huddled in whispering groups. Someone from house number 11 carried a baseball bat. The McKellans, who never talked to anyone, were filming with a handheld camcorder like it was 1998. Whatever veil Violet had pulled over Silverview, it was gone. Inside the basement, Brett led us to a back panel hidden behind the utilities closet. A biometric scanner pulsed softly on the wall. He reached into his pocket, pulled out a severed plastic finger, a key fob modeled after Violet's print. "I made this after she demoted me," he muttered. "Just in case." He pressed it against the reader. The wall clicked open, and behind it, a room straight out of a dystopian fever dream. Dozens of servers, massive screens, a single terminal glowing with a prompt. "Enter command, _. Do it," Liv whispered. I typed, "Shut down _all." The system paused, then flashed, "Warning. Terminating all active surveillance will disable remote behavioral scoring, emotional monitoring, and community cohesion evaluation. Are you sure?" I hit Y. The lights dimmed. The screens blinked off. And across Silverview Park, every camera died. The silence afterward was beautiful. No hum of surveillance. No quiet pressure in the walls. Just stillness. Outside, neighbors emerged. Someone from house number 8 cheered. A kid rode a scooter down the middle of the street. I looked at Liv. It's over. She shook her head. It's starting. By morning, house number 27 was boarded up. Not by the HOA, by us. Deliberate. Public. Symbolic. The news vans were back. This time they filmed us as we walked down the street with our bags packed. Ava between us. A journalist asked, "Is it true you took down the HOA?" I smiled. "No," I said. "We freed the neighborhood from it." And behind me, for the first time since we moved in, I heard people talking to each other without whispering, laughing, organizing, not fearing. We left Silverview Park at sunrise, not quietly, deliberately. We didn't sneak out the back gate. We walked down Maple Crest Boulevard, past the clubhouse, past the ruined remains of the security kiosk, past Violet's prized ornamental hydrangeas, which someone had spray-painted "Nice Try" in pink block letters. Ava had her stuffed fox tucked under one arm and a juice pouch in the other, like this was just another morning. And maybe it was. Maybe, for the first time, it really was. Our house number 27, stood at the end of the street, boarded up not in shame but as a message. Liv and I had done it ourselves the night before, hammering plywood across the windows, marking the front door with a single word in red. Seen. No more shadows. No more pretending. We didn't bother listing it. Let them figure it out. Let the bank or the state or whatever entity now controls what's left of Silverview Park deal with it. We had bigger things to do. But first, we stayed just long enough to watch the storm finish swallowing Violet Green. She tried, of course, to salvage her legacy, to spin the narrative, to call it a coordinated smear campaign by malicious former residents. But you can't gaslight the internet, not once it smells blood. News stations aired the surveillance footage nightly. YouTubers analyzed every document line by line. A true crime podcast called it "The Suburb That Stalked Itself." Some Redditor leaked her emails. Messy. Someone else found a shell company linked to her husband's offshore accounts. Apparently, the community cohesion fees we paid each quarter funded more than ornamental grass and emotional regulation. 3 days after the upload, Violet resigned for health reasons. 4 days later, she was subpoenaed, and 5 days after that, the entire Silverview HOA board was dissolved by emergency vote. But the residents didn't stop there, because for the first time in years, they realized they could talk. Old Man Hank led the charge. Turns out he wasn't as broken as he'd let on. Just waiting for someone dumb enough or angry enough to do what he couldn't risk alone. He became a folk hero overnight. Local papers called him the Watchman. Kids on TikTok edited videos of him nodding ominously under lo-fi beats. At the first neighborhood-wide meeting, a real one without pre-written scripts or PowerPoint violations, he opened with, "We've spent years policing our lawns while our lives were being monitored. Let's do better. Let's be better." And the crowd cheered. Genuine, raw, and loud enough to make up for every silent year. Liv and I kept our heads down for a while. Not because we were scared. We were just tired. Tired in that deep, soul-wringing way you get when you realize you've spent months tiptoeing around invisible landmines. But that didn't stop the letters. Thank you notes from strangers. Messages from people in other HOAs asking how we did it. A package from a group of whistleblowers in Florida. Yes, Florida. With a folder labeled Sunshine Day HOA, the real rules. Apparently, Silverview wasn't alone. Apparently, this was just the beginning. So I started writing again. Not articles, not exposés. A book, tentatively titled Compliance, the quiet war. Live helped. Ava drew the cover, a stick figure kicking over a beige mailbox. And when the publisher offered a 6-figure advance, we laughed so hard we cried. I visited house number 27 one last time, months later, long after the boards had been tagged with murals and chalk art and Ava's name in neon marker. It had become a kind of local landmark. People came to take pictures. Teens made horror TikToks. One guy tried to sell "I survived the HOA" shirts outside it until someone pelted him with compliance code printouts. I stood on the porch and just listened. It was quiet, but real quiet this time. No humming cameras, no scheduled patrols, no performance. Just a street, a house, and the wind. I smiled, then walked away. They asked us if we'd ever come back. We told them no. But the truth is, house number 27 never left us. It was the place that reminded us how fragile freedom really is, how easily fear can be dressed in politeness, how silence can be weaponized. But it was also the place we fought back, the house where we stopped hiding, the street where we stood tall, the moment we said, enough. And somewhere deep in the wiring of every HOA across the country, someone was probably whispering, "Beige is dead."